Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to break down one of the most popular tools in web development, React. If you've ever wondered how modern websites feel so incredibly fast and interactive, well, you're in the right place. We are going to pull back the curtain on the technology that powers so many of the apps you use every single day. All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we'll get right to the heart of what React actually is. Then, we'll check out its Lego-like building blocks. After that, we're going to uncover the secret sauce that makes it so fast, the virtual DOM. We'll also see how these pieces come to life with data, and we'll finish up by looking at the two main ways you can build with it.
So, first things first, let's tackle that big question. What is React? And really, how does it make our web experience feel so slick and so fast?
Think about it. You're scrolling through your social media feed, and new posts just appear, right? Or you click a like button, and it instantly changes color. There's no flash, no waiting for the whole page to reload. That smooth, fluid feeling, that's not an accident. And a lot of the time, it's powered by exactly what we're talking about today.
A lot of this magic comes from something called a single-page application, or an SPA. You see, the old way of doing things was clunky. You click a link, you wait for a whole new page to load from the server. An SPA, on the other hand, loads just once. After that, it just dynamically rewrites bits and pieces of the page as you interact with it. It feels way faster. And this is exactly where React comes into the picture. It's one of the most popular JavaScript libraries out there, designed specifically for building these awesome single-page applications. It's basically a toolkit for developers to create those dynamic and interactive interfaces we all know and love.
Okay, so how does React actually build these things? Well, it all boils down to its core philosophy, breaking down a big, complicated web page into small, independent, and much more manageable puzzle pieces.
So the heart and soul of React is this idea of components. Don't think of a website as one giant block of code. Instead, picture it as a collection of reusable parts. You might have a component for your search bar, one for a profile picture, another for a button. And the best part? You build that button component once, and then you can reuse it everywhere. It's incredibly efficient.
Now, to describe what these components look like, React uses this really cool thing called JSX. Now, at first glance, it looks just like HTML, right? But it's actually JavaScript in disguise. And this is pretty brilliant because it lets developers put the visual structure and the logic that powers it all in the same place. So, we've got our building blocks, but what makes React so fast? Well, this next part is the real secret ingredient to its amazing speed, the virtual DOM.
To really get why this is such a big deal, you have to understand the old problem. You see, every web page is represented in the browser by a structure called the DOM. And in the past, changing anything in the DOM, even something tiny, was super slow. It was like having to redraw an entire blueprint just to move one little line.
React's solution is just genius. It's called the virtual DOM. It's a lightweight copy, just a representation in memory of the real UI. Think of it like a quick sketch that React can mess with and change instantly without ever touching that heavy official blueprint. So here's how it works. When data changes in your app, React doesn't immediately mess with the real page. Nope. First, it updates its virtual sketch. Then, it plays a quick game of spot the difference between the new sketch and the old one, finds the only things that changed, and then it tells the browser to update just those specific little spots. It's like being a master renovator. Instead of rebuilding the entire house, React just figures out which single brick needs to be replaced.
This whole super efficient process of comparing the differences and updating the real page, well, it has a name, reconciliation. And that is the absolute core of React's performance. It's the reason why React apps feel so incredibly snappy and responsive.
So we have these amazing building blocks, and we have a really fast way to update them, but how do we make them interactive? How do they actually handle data and change over time?
The first piece of that puzzle is something called state. Just think of state as a component's private internal memory. For example, is a menu open or closed? What text has a user typed into a search bar? All that info is held in the component's state. And when that state changes, React automatically redraws just that one component to show the update. Okay, so if state is the component's internal memory, props are how it gets information from the outside. Props are basically data that you pass down from a parent component to a child. This is what lets us make a generic reusable button component. Then we can use that same button 3 times on a page, just passing it a different prop for its text each time, like login, sign up, or submit. All right, let's move on to the two main ways you can actually write these components.
because for a while, the React world was kind of divided into two different camps.
On one side, you had class components. This was the original, more structured way of doing things. And on the other, you had function components, which were a lot simpler, but also less powerful. For a long time, if your component needed its own internal state, you had to use a class. But then, everything changed.
The invention of hooks was a total game changer for React. Hooks are special functions that let you hook into React features from your simple function components. All of a sudden, this gave simple functions all the power that classes had, but with a much, much cleaner and more concise way of writing them.
So what does this all mean for developers today? Well, you'll definitely still see class components in older projects, but the modern, standard, and let's be honest, preferred way to build React apps is with function components and hooks. It's just a cleaner and more flexible way to go.
So, let's wrap this all up. React lets us build our user interfaces out of reusable components using JSX. It stays unbelievably fast thanks to the virtual DOM. We make our components dynamic with internal state and external props. And today, the way we do all of this is with the modern, elegant approach of function components and hooks. That, in a nutshell, is what makes React tick.
And that's our quick dive into React. It really did introduce a totally new way of thinking about how we build for the web. And it leaves us with one final thought to chew on. As technology keeps racing forward, what do you think will be the next big shift in how we create our digital worlds?